Have you ever wished you could be the kind of person who remains completely unshaken? Someone who doesn't crumble under criticism, who doesn't spiral after rejection, who doesn't break when loss or betrayal arrives at their door? Have you ever dreamed of the day when you'll finally stop feeling that silent, gnawing pain? That anguish that eats you alive from the inside, even when you're smiling on the outside, even when you're pretending everything is perfectly fine. Maybe you're exhausted from trying to please everyone around you, tired of maintaining an image that requires constant strength and vigilance when all you really want is to rest, just for a moment, from the crushing pressure of appearing invulnerable. But here's something that perhaps no one has had the courage to tell you directly. As long as you're trying to avoid pain, it will continue to control every aspect of your life. As long as you're trying to numb yourself, protect yourself, hide from difficult emotions, you will remain a hostage to everything happening around you, to the words that cut you, to the actions that disappoint you, to the silences that slowly kill something inside you. And this isn't weakness. This is the reality for most people walking this earth. The only difference is that some have learned to pretend better than others, to wear more convincing masks. Carl Jung, one of the most profound minds in depth psychology, said something that changes everything. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. And that's where the real key lies, hidden in plain sight. True strength isn't about shielding yourself from the world. It's not about becoming cold, indifferent, or genuinely untouchable. It's about integration, about bringing into conscious awareness everything that currently affects you from the shadows. Because real strength is not the absence of pain. It's the full awareness of who you are, even when you're bleeding. If you've made it this far in this video, it's not by chance or accident. This message is specifically for you. You who are tired of hurting yourself with everything and everyone. You who feel like you're always at an emotional disadvantage, as if other people possess some power over you that you don't understand and can't seem to grasp. I want to show you that it doesn't have to be this way. But to get there, you're going to have to face some truths that may hurt. And perhaps for the first time in your life, this pain will actually set you free. Let's begin. The wound that makes you vulnerable. You believe that what hurts you exists out there in the external world, in the careless actions of others, in poorly chosen words, in the abandonments you've endured, in the betrayals you never saw coming. But here's the brutal truth that changes everything. None of these external events actually has the power to hurt you unless there's already an open wound existing inside you. What genuinely hurts you is not what others do to you. It's what these experiences activate within you. It's the story you immediately tell yourself about what happened. It's the old, unhealed trauma that has never been properly addressed. It's the emptiness you desperately disguise with strength, with pride, with that frantic need to seem well-adjusted and in control. Jung showed us through decades of clinical work that the pain we experience in response to the external world is merely a reflection, a mirror of what has not yet been integrated into our internal world. That's why some people can survive absolutely devastating situations and still maintain remarkable clarity and stability, while others completely crumble in the face of a simple comment or minor rejection. It's not fundamentally about what happens to you. It's about where it hits you, which psychological wound it touches. And here comes an uncomfortable truth you need to hear. You still suffer so intensely because on some level, you believe you can control how the world should treat you. You're still desperately trying to be good enough, smart enough, strong enough, understanding enough, as if that somehow guarantees that no one will hurt you. But control is an illusion, and as long as you cling desperately to that illusion, you live in constant psychological tension, endlessly trying to predict the unpredictable, trying to avoid the inevitable. Do you want to stop suffering? Then you need to stop protecting yourself from suffering. What you actually need is not more control over external circumstances. You need more awareness of internal patterns. As long as you believe that other people need to change for you to stop feeling pain, you will remain enslaved by the actions of others. Your freedom begins the precise moment you understand that everything coming from outside only has power if it finds a resonating echo within you. And this is exactly where the true battlefield exists, in the unconscious mind. What you do not see, do not understand, and do not consciously master will master you instead. And this is what we're going to explore deeply in the next part. Get ready to dive one level deeper, because that's where genuine transformation begins. The unconscious mind. Your hidden master. The biggest lie you've been told is that you are in complete control of your life, your choices, your reactions. Wake up, because you're not. At least not as long as you continue living on psychological autopilot, reacting without knowing why, feeling without understanding where it comes from, making decisions that you later sabotage in ways you don't comprehend. Carl Jung made this devastatingly clear when he wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that is exactly what's happening to you right now, in this moment. The pain you feel seemingly out of nowhere. The anger that explodes without warning. The sadness that invades you without any clear explanation. None of this is random or meaningless. These are messages, signals coming from parts of yourself that have been systematically forgotten, ignored, repressed, pushed down into darkness. Jung referred to this vast, hidden territory as the unconscious mind. And it's not just a vague cloud of random thoughts floating around. It's an active force, an entire complex system of memories, unresolved traumas, suppressed desires, and unacknowledged fears that you refuse to face, but which continue deciding what you feel and how you automatically react. You wonder why certain words completely destroy you while other people remain unaffected. Because those specific words touch sensitive points within you that are still psychologically alive, still raw and unhealed. And if they're still alive and reactive, it's because you have never truly confronted them. You've only pushed them under the psychological rug, and now you keep tripping over the same invisible obstacles. Jung said something profound. We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. And what have you been doing all this time? Judging yourself harshly, repressing difficult emotions, silencing uncomfortable truths, as if that would somehow solve anything. The truth is that the unconscious doesn't disappear just because you ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist. It only finds more dangerous, more destructive ways to manifest itself. In toxic relationships that you mysteriously repeat. In patterns of self-sabotage that you cannot seem to break no matter how hard you try. In anxieties and nameless fears that arise precisely when everything appears to be going well. This isn't bad luck or cosmic punishment. It's your unconscious desperately trying to wake you up to get your attention, but you insist on sleeping, on staying unconscious. Do you want to become someone who is no longer easily hurt? Then stop running away from what exists inside you. Because as long as you don't know your own unconscious mind, you will remain a puppet controlled by your emotions. And the more you try to protect yourself from external pain, the more vulnerable you become to internal suffering. But there is a way out of this trap. And it's not found in defending yourself or building higher walls. It's found in integration, in bringing the unconscious into conscious awareness. Because becoming truly untouchable is not an act of resistance or defense. It's an act of deep self-knowledge. What it truly means to be emotionally strong. Most people believe that the only way to avoid getting hurt is by closing themselves off completely. They build thick psychological walls. They create elaborate masks. They develop emotional armor. And they pretend with great conviction that nothing affects them. They say, "I don't care anymore. Nothing gets to me. I'm completely fine." But inside, they continue to bleed. They continue to corrode from within, because the problem was never about feeling emotions. The problem is not knowing what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. And this painful confusion only happens to those who do not yet truly know themselves. Jung was precise when he stated, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques, but as you touch a human soul, be just another human soul." And that human soul you insist on hiding behind a strong, invulnerable, perfectly controlled character. It's screaming desperately to be seen, to be acknowledged. Becoming emotionally strong has nothing whatsoever to do with being cold. It has nothing to do with ignoring pain, avoiding conflict, or pretending not to care about anything. It has everything to do with integration, with acceptance, with bringing to conscious light everything you have buried in psychological darkness. You do not become untouchable by creating an impenetrable barrier between yourself and the world. You become untouchable when you finally realize that no one can touch what has already been fully embraced within you. When you integrate your shadows, your fears, your flaws, your insecurities, your shame, you stop reacting unconsciously to everything. You observe. You choose. You respond with intention. You are no longer an emotional puppet jerked around by external circumstances. And that is true freedom, the only freedom that actually matters. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming who you really are. Not what others expect of you. Not what you thought you should be in order to be accepted and loved. But what emerges authentically from within, from the meeting point of light and shadow, conscious and unconscious. Jung wrote, "Individuation is not a process of perfection, but of integration." You don't need to become a better person by some external standard. You just need to become whole, to reclaim all the parts of yourself you've rejected and exiled. And here's the secret that no one tells you. The more you run from pain, the more relentlessly it chases you. The more you try not to be affected by anything, the more fragile and reactive you actually become. But when you finally face your own wounds directly, when you accept who you are with all that is beautiful and ugly, noble and shameful, nothing outside has the power to dismantle you. However, this path requires genuine courage. Courage to look within without flinching. Courage to abandon the comfortable masks. Courage to feel everything you've been avoiding. Because it is precisely in pain, in that space of discomfort, that the key to transformation is hidden. Pain as the gateway to transformation. You learn to hate pain from a very young age. You were taught that suffering is a sign of weakness, that crying is a waste of time and energy, that feeling too much makes you vulnerable and pathetic. And so you began to run from difficult emotions, to avoid them at all costs, to deny their existence. But here's what actually happens. The more you flee from suffering, the more it chases you. And worse, it changes form. It disguises itself as anxiety, anger, apathy, boredom, or self-destructive impulses that seem to come from nowhere. Ignored pain doesn't disappear. It just digs tunnels inside you, creating underground pathways, until one day, without warning, everything collapses. Jung saw suffering in a completely different light than most people. He believed that pain was the messenger of the soul, the alarm system of the unconscious, the language that your deeper self uses to get your attention. He wrote, "Depression is like a lady in black. If she appears, do not push her away. Invite her to sit down, offer her tea, and listen carefully to what she has to say." But you don't listen, do you? You silence yourself, distract yourself, keep yourself frantically busy, numb yourself with whatever works. You do absolutely everything to avoid looking at what really matters. What is this pain trying to show you? What is it pointing toward? The truth is that suffering only hurts so intensely because you are still at war with yourself. There's still a part of you desperately wanting to grow and evolve, and another part desperately wanting to keep everything exactly as it is, safe and familiar. There's something deep inside you crying out for transformation. But your ego, accustomed to control and predictability, tries to suffocate that call for change. And it's in this internal friction, this psychological war, that pain is born and intensifies. Because change hurts, growth hurts, letting go of old, limiting beliefs hurts, Cutting toxic ties hurts. Allowing what no longer serves you to die hurts. All of this is a form of mourning, an internal process of death and rebirth. But it is precisely in this space of ruin and deconstruction that something genuinely new can be born. Because when everything in you is systematically deconstructed, when old certainties crumble, when pain lays bare your deepest vulnerability, you can finally see who you really are. Without the protective layers, without the performance, without the mask. And at that exact point, suffering becomes sacred. Because it brings you to your knees before the only thing that can truly set you free, yourself. Jung understood this profoundly. He knew that suffering is not a failure of the system or a punishment. It's an integral part of the process of psychological development. Pain is not the end of the road. It's the beginning of the journey toward individuation, toward wholeness. The problem is that most people give up before crossing that dark valley. They flee back to the surface. They distract themselves. They return to comfortable numbness. But not you. If you've made it this far, it's because you're ready to cross. The lonely path of individuation, few people have the courage to begin the journey of individuation. And even fewer have the courage to complete it, because this path does not promise comfort. It doesn't offer guarantees. It doesn't protect your ego. It destroys it. Jung referred to individuation as the process of becoming who you truly are. But this means, above all else, unlearning what you think you are. And that hurts more than any external rejection. Because you start to realize that much of what defined you until now was an illusion, a construct. You are not your achievements. You are not your traumas. You are not the carefully constructed image you created to be loved, respected, or admired. All of that was what you built to survive. But surviving is not living. And individuation is life's call beyond mere survival. It's when the unconscious begins forcefully pushing everything that has been repressed, hidden, and distorted to the surface of awareness. Jung wrote, "Individuation requires the dissolution of the persona, for it is merely a mask of collective convenience." In other words, you will need to tear off your own protective skin to discover what lies beneath it. It is in this painful process that you begin to become genuinely untouchable. Not because nothing affects you anymore, but because you have already walked through the fire. You have faced your monsters directly. You have looked into the eyes of your shame, your neediness, your anger, and said clearly, "I see you, and you no longer control me." It is this internal clarity, this lucidity in the face of your own darkness, that gives you a strength that does not depend on approval, recognition, or control. You no longer need to be loved by everyone. You no longer need to win every argument. You no longer need to appear strong, because you know who you are, and no one can take that away from you. True emotional armor is not a shell you build around yourself. It's a solid core you develop within. It's the integration of all your parts into a center of consciousness that remains unshaken in the face of external storms. You may feel pain, but it doesn't break you. You may be hurt, but you don't lose yourself, because you have stopped being merely reactive and have become whole. However, this depth comes at a price: loneliness. Not because you will necessarily be alone, but because few people can accompany you on this journey. Most are still trapped on the surface, in masks, in the fear of feeling deeply. And when you begin to free yourself from these patterns, you inevitably distance yourself from those places. But this distancing is not rejection or arrogance. It's maturation. It's outgrowing spaces that no longer fit who you're becoming. Consciousness as your shield. Now that you've made it this far, there's something that needs to be said with complete clarity. Nothing, absolutely nothing, will shield you from external suffering if you remain unconscious of what happens within you. The words will continue to hurt. The rejections will continue to sting. The losses will keep bringing you down until you awaken. And awakening is not a magical event that happens to you. It's a daily choice. It's choosing to look within even when it hurts. It's taking full responsibility for everything you feel without blaming others, the past, or fate anymore. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists, what you accept transforms." You have spent your whole life resisting. the fear of not being enough, the emptiness of rejection, the pain of loneliness, the anguish of not feeling seen or understood. But what did all that resistance accomplish? You hid, you silenced yourself, you tried to control everything and everyone, you tried to be perfect, you tried to be invulnerable, and all of this has brought you here, exhausted, tired of fighting against the world and against yourself. But now you know a different truth. True emotional immunity is not hardness or coldness, it's clarity. It's not about creating impenetrable armor. It's about expanding your consciousness, your awareness. Because when you truly understand your triggers, your patterns, your wounds, the actions of others lose their power to destroy you. You still feel emotions, but you don't drown in them. You still experience suffering, but you don't lose yourself in it. And that changes absolutely everything. What shields you is not protecting yourself from life. It's diving into it deeply, courageously. Those who live on the psychological surface get hurt by every small wave. Those who dive deep discover that there is silence, stability, and real power below the surface chaos. And that's where you're headed now. When you start to live from that place of integration, presence, and acceptance, the world may try to knock you down, but it no longer finds anywhere to hit you that will cause collapse. This is Jung's gift to you. The understanding that true strength comes not from resistance, but from integration. Not from hiding, but from seeing clearly. You are not broken. You never were. You're just finally waking up.